It's nice to hear you use the word experiment. That's not a word you often hear in government.
I work for Mayor Bloomberg. That's the way he thinks. And he was very clear when he launched us. He said, you've got 2 years, and if it doesn't work, I'm pulling the plug.
Okay. Wow. So is that you have 2 years?
Don't tell Cathie.
I think she already knows.
Yeah.
Well, NEDAP does quite a bit of work, with community-based financial literacy and community-based economic justice, education, and we feel that that's a very important part of the work that we do. But we also feel very strongly that strong regulation and enforcement of that regulation is a very important part of stemming abuses and predatory practices. So could you talk a little bit about how you balance that out in the larger scheme of your mission? What's your vision for the enforcement? And I know that you've also talked about impact litigation. What's your vision for that enforcement impact litigation?
Well, this agency has a history of some pretty high impact litigation on issues actually relevant to poverty issues, for example.
And it might help to just say what impact litigation is for those who don't know it.
Sorry, it's litigation that has an impact. No, it's litigation that's far-reaching. It's litigation that doesn't just go after necessarily one particular circumstance where somebody might have gotten injured, but really goes after an industry practice and tries to, through the power of litigation, change the practice. And one perfect example, which I'm guessing you might be interested in, is the question of refund anticipation loans.
Right.
For many, many years, the financial services industry was pushing refund anticipation loans in ways that were illegal. They were pushing them in a way that made it look to people like they were instant refunds, when in fact they were very high cost, very high interest, I would say unattractive loans.
So would I would say that.
So one of the things that Consumer Affairs has the power and the will to do, and what we were able to do, was to bring very large-scale litigation to send a very clear and costly message to the private tax preparer industry. This is illegal, it cannot go on, and litigation stopped it. Now, it didn't stop the product, and we can talk about that in a second, but it did stop the deception. And I think that any time you want to get an industry to change its practice, the low-hanging fruit is the illegal practice. The next challenge is to start to go after products like the refund anticipation loan, which are legal as long as they're advertised appropriately. And how do you get that product to not be so attractive to people, even once they know that it's actually now a loan? And that's where I think, again, being positioned in government gives us the opportunity to go back and work with that industry, for example, and say, look, you got our message. You can't lie about this product anymore. Now let's talk about ways to give consumers smarter choices. And that's what we've been able to do.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because NEDAP has done a lot of work around refund anticipation loans. Right? We published a study that documented how $324 million was taken out of New York City over a 4-year period. That 1 out of 5 borrowers, taxpayers I should say, in some neighborhoods were actually receiving RALs. And I would say it was 10 neighborhoods really represent where most of these loans are being concentrated. So I know that you've got this EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit program. It's a public education or public awareness program.
Right.
One of the things we've noticed in there that some of your partners are some of the people who we consider to be some of the most egregious actors in the tax anticipation, the RAL industry. That is HSBC, Jackson Hewitt, Liberty Tax Services, H&R Block. So could you tell me, how do you sort of reconcile that, the fact that you have this program and yet you've got some of these actors involved with you?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked. I think this is a classic example of where you can be really smart about leveraging power and opportunity and mission. Because here's what we did. As you say, we have an earned income tax credit campaign. Mayor put together a coalition. It's now in its 5th year. Getting the word out to people, this tax credit is for real. It's yours to go get. There's a network of free tax assistance partners out there that are going to help you do your taxes and go get the credit if you're eligible. And one of the things that we did was we leveraged this industry that had taken its licks from us in terms of litigation and wanted to change their approach. Now remember, the RAL is a legal product, so here's what we did. We negotiated with these private tax preparers to offer a coupon to people so that if they choose not to go to a free tax site, or if they're ineligible, if they make more than $40,000, they want to go to a private preparer, there's a coupon so that it's much less money. It's like 75 bucks,
Right.
which is a pretty good deal. What's exciting is, and what I'm really proud of, is that at the same time, we got these private tax preparers to agree that when people used these coupons, they could not be offered a refund anticipation loan. So here you take a legal product, which obviously has some market appeal, let's be honest, and we've leveraged it out of the mix for all of these New Yorkers who can now get their taxes done for cheaper. And that's, I think, an example of where you can really be smart about working creatively with industry. It had to start with high-impact litigation, but then you move on from there into productive partnership. I think that's what we're good at.
Well, let me push back on that for a minute. One is, doesn't offering that coupon and saying that you're not going to target certain people, doesn't that sort of acknowledge that the practice is bad or abusive in the first place? One question. The second question is, will this relationship at all compromise some of the enforcement or any future sort of impact litigation you may have? And I guess my third question is, why is there not a push towards free tax prep? Because when people see when they see the EITC ad that you have, it's got all these different players on there, and so it might encourage them to use tax prep that they have to pay for.
This city has a fantastic coalition of free tax prep places. There are, I think, about 60 of them around the city. And our campaign says to people, the EITC, it's your money, come and get it, call 311. Okay. So you call 311, and we want to tell people basically whether it looks like they qualify, and we do want to steer them to free tax assistance.
Okay, good.
But the free tax prep sites can only handle so much volume. And the truth is that not everybody wants to go to a free tax site, or they go and it's too crowded and they can't get their taxes done. You can't ignore the reality of the fact that private tax preparation is part of the mix. And so our challenge was, how do you leverage their role in the tax preparation industry to further the advantage, to further the mission? First and foremost, we want people to get this credit. That's our primary goal in that campaign. Second, what we want to make sure is that it's as easy as possible to get it. And so A, go get your taxes done for free. B, if you want to go to a private preparer, here's a coupon so it's cheaper. And by the way, you're not going to be hit up with this loan. Okay. They're not even going to offer it to you. And if you ask for it, they won't give it to you. So I think you accomplish a lot in that way. But unfortunately, as any free tax site will tell you, particularly now, they're close to capacity.
Okay.